Welcome back to the channel. My name is Soren, and in this video we're going to be going over the different types of debt that you can have, and especially what is bad debt. Now, to start with, I'm going to go over what actually is good debt, and is there such a thing as good debt. Now, what I consider good debt is when you buy, for example, an investment property, a rental property. And let's say you buy it for $250,000 down, you put 20% down as your down payment, so around $50,000, and then you put a tenant in it to cover the mortgage, and it pays you, and the rent for that covers the mortgage plus your expenses, and on top of that, it gives you $200 to $400 of cash flow every single month. That is what I would consider good debt, because even though you have 80% of that mortgage, or about $200,000 on a loan, that loan is still making you money because your renter is paying for your mortgage, and it's even giving you extra money at the end of the month. Now, outside of real estate, there's not tons of areas that are super reliable that you can leverage debt like that to make money. You can use it in stocks to trade on margin. However, that is also extremely risky because of how volatile stocks are. Unlike with real estate prices, even when they do dip, will only dip about 10 to 15%. In '08, we saw some really extreme cases where real estate prices dipped almost 20%, but have since, in the last 10 years, come back far beyond that. Plus, even when real estate prices do dip, most of that is just in the appraised value. Rent prices and what real estate rents for doesn't really change it that much at all. In fact, rents are more tied to market demand and inflation than anything else. Now, the types of bad debt that you can have are, for example, your own mortgage, or car loans, personal loans, student loans, and credit card debt. These are all types of debt that are extremely bad for you and your financial situation because they just pull money out of your bank account. They don't put any money back into it. Now, if you've watched my other video of how to get out of debt fast, you know the best ways to get out of debt are to budget and to start putting aside money to go towards your debt and paying off your highest interest debts at first, like your credit card loans, because you're probably paying about 24 to 30% interest APR on that. Now, I do want to talk about a mortgage because, like I said, a mortgage is technically considered bad debt, but is it better to keep on renting an apartment or a house than it is to get a mortgage and take on that debt? And this really comes down to time and convenience. Do you plan on moving in the next 3 to 5 years? If you do plan on moving, like from one city to another or to another state or a country, I would recommend you keep on renting because it is typically cheaper than going through the entire process of buying a house and having equity tied up in it and having to sell. And the market right now is extremely easy to sell, but we're already starting to see a slow change in the market, and it is going to go from a seller's market to a buyer's market. As it always does, it goes back and forth. However, if you are planning on being in that same city for the next 5 to 10, 15, 20 years, I think it is great for you to buy a home. And this is why. When you pay rent, all of that money, that $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 completely goes out the window. None of it goes towards any equity that you have in that property. So what I always recommend doing, if you're staying in a place for a long period of time, I always recommend buying the home. And even though this is technically considered bad debt, it does add towards your net worth. And there are things you can do to make your own mortgage not considered as bad of debt as it is. For example, if you own a large home, let's say you are in a 3-bedroom home and you only really need to use 1 or 2 of those bedrooms, you can rent out the third one on Airbnb or Vrbo to make supplemental income. When you're buying your property, what you could do is you could go and buy a duplex or a triplex that you can cover the mortgage of your own home with the supplemental rental income from the other 2 units. Or you can get really crazy and put both of those other units on Airbnb and make a ton of money from it, because short-term rentals can have a really great return depending on where you live and where your home is located at. The other thing I want to talk about briefly are student loans. I think student loans are a very iffy subject because everyone believes to think they need a 4-year education, which in all reality, depending on what you want to do, you don't need a 4-year education. And further, what I really want to talk about is the ROI on your student loans. If you're paying $30,000 to $50,000 a year to go to college and you can't get that covered for by grants and scholarships, unless you're going to college to be a petroleum engineer where you have a starting salary of over $120,000, it's probably not worth it because you're really not going to have a return on your investment for all of that money you're going to put into school. You're not going to get anything back out of it. Your ROI is going to be negative because if you're going to school to be a teacher, and let's say you get a job at a really good school, and you just so happen to start making $50,000 out of the gate, which most teachers don't, you're more likely to make $35,000 to $40,000 depending on the state you're in. That $120,000 to $200,000 you just spent on a 4-year education made you negative money, and it is going to take you years to pay it off if you are ever even able to pay it off, because now you have a $150,000 loan at 3 to 5% interest. That is honestly probably accumulating more interest than you can pay back substantially based off of your living expenses. So that's what I always recommend. I recommend you look at the ROI on your schooling. And if it is not going to produce a positive ROI in the double digits, as in 10% or more, I would not recommend going to school. I would recommend finding a different way to get into the career path that you want, or find a career that doesn't require an education at all, like in sales, or perhaps being an entrepreneur, starting your own business, construction company, whatever it may be. There's all kinds of trade schools as well, even for things like coding, which can be an extremely lucrative career to go into. I also want to touch on credit card debt. I think credit cards are a phenomenal tool for you to use, and you definitely should be using them and building your credit as soon as you turn 18. You just need to treat it like a debit card. You need to pay off your balance every single month. What's really bad about credit cards is when you don't pay off your balance and you let it build up, and that's when the interest really starts to hurt you. And the benefits of the card definitely don't outweigh the consequences for that. It also will hurt your credit carrying large balances month to month on your cards. So treat it like a debit card, keep your utilization low, and don't build up that debt. If you do have tons of credit card debt, you might consider going to your bank and getting that debt refinanced into a personal loan with a lower interest rate. Even if you're paying 5 to 10% on a personal loan, they can spread it across 1 to 5 years and make it much more tolerable so you can continue to pay your bills and curb the spending and get in a better situation where you can pay down that debt faster. Plus, of course, even that 5 to 10% over the next 3 years might end up being more in interest than just paying the 24 to 30% on the 1 year. It at least gets your payment down so you can make extra principal payments to your loan without paying those super high interest rates. So that's my advice as far as what bad debts are and how to deal with them. Also, really how to leverage money and create good debt that can benefit you and your family. Thank you for watching this video and have a great day.